You know what you're good at. Take some time, read the room. Ask yourself, how many other people are as good at this as I am? You may be on the path to discovering your uniqueness. Additionally, everything about you doesn't necessarily need to be unique for you to have a valuable personal brand. Another component of your brand is your values. No matter your environment, some values are universally appreciated. And here are just a few. Being seen as being responsible, responsive, trustworthy, having high integrity, taking initiative, and then my favorite, just get shit done. Hello again. Welcome to The Ruthless Truth. I am your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I consider to be a unique life experience. And you can read the details of that in the notes or the bio. My intent is to share stories and hopefully provide some life and career lessons that will help you on your journey. Please follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5 and friend me at Ruthless Truth on Facebook. General format, I'll share some initial commentary on current news or just thoughts. Then I'll have a deeper discussion on one topic in today's truth. And then I like to finish with an American history fun fact. Okay, so unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard that the U.S. implemented broad-reaching and significant tariffs in 2025. This activity is impacting many aspects of American life. Some are good, some are unknown, and some not so good. Well, one place that is especially hard hit is Las Vegas, Nevada. Because more than any other city in the United States, Vegas relies on tourism to sustain its economy. Well, the combination of tariffs and growing anti-American sentiment has resulted in significant decreases in international tourists. Most notably, Canada, Nevada's largest international market, has dried up from a torrent to a drip. Same for Mexico. But specifically, Canadian tourism is down more than 50%, and overall international tourism is down 12%. Now, while the sky is not falling, these trends are impactful and are leading to a mix of actions and reactions in Vegas. Some resorts are offering discounts and deals in an effort to attract a greater share of the visitors that are there. While there have also been reports of price gouging at other establishments who are trying to make up for the shortfall by increasing the revenue per visitor. But amidst all these negative trends and turmoil, there is one undeniable, spectacular success in Vegas this summer. It's the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere. The Sphere is a music and entertainment arena located at the Venetian Resort on the Las Vegas Strip. It cost $2.3 billion to construct, and it opened in September 2023 with the residency of rock supergroup U2. The venue is humongous, and it boasts a 160,000 square foot LED screen. Sphere spent nearly $100 million to reimagine The Wizard of Oz and edit the film to fit on the venue's massive screen. The company also used new techniques to bring falling apples and flying monkeys above audience members' heads in moments that make audience members feel as though they are inside the film. The project has been a huge success. With an average ticket price of $200, the film is generating $2 million a day in ticket sales. It'll finish the year as one of the top 10 highest grossing films in the U.S. from just one location. Gross profits for The Wizard of Oz at the Sphere are expected to exceed $400 million. So what should you take away from this incredible phenomenon? Well, here's my take. There will always be an audience for unique content and the creative minds that create it. And people will pay to experience it. This was a daring and imaginative endeavor. I love to see ingenuity being rewarded. It's what makes capitalism great. Okay, let's get to today's truth. So I want to share some perspective and guidance on branding. But I don't want to talk about national consumer brands. I want to talk about your personal brand. And please know, whether you recognize it or not, you have a personal brand. You have a brand with your friends and family, and most importantly, in the workplace. And just like with a product or company, a brand has to be managed. The process of brand management is the same, whether it's a product, political candidate, or yourself. And it's possible to have multiple brand faces. Your brand at work could be very different than your image and positioning with your family and friends. But for today's discussion, I want to discuss your career brand positioning. There are 3 components to managing your personal brand. 1, define and establish your brand. 2nd, build your brand. And then 3rd, protect and defend your brand. Okay, let's start with the first step, establishing your brand. Well, the key to a great personal brand is authenticity. This is a time for self-inventory and brutal honesty. What makes you unique? What are your strengths? Well, what do people tell you? Again, your brand is mostly determined by how your audience sees you. Now, you may be thinking, there's nothing unique about me. That's unlikely. What's more likely is you haven't yet discovered what is unique about you, or there's something very unique about you and you just don't know it. You don't realize it's special. You know, great singers don't know they're great singers until they're around people who can't sing. But after being exposed to others singing, they'll realize, damn, that girl can't sing. I must be pretty good. So you need to discover your uniqueness. Look around. What comes easily to you, but not so much to others? What do people ask you to help them with? If someone asks you for help, they are admitting that you are better at this than they are. You know, when I was in MBA school, the number one objective of everyone was landing that first great job. In those days, companies would send recruiters to the school, and then they would conduct a full day slate of 30-minute interviews with students. And so when interview season came around, I was feeling pretty confident that I would do well. You know, I had a 4.0 grade point average, relevant business experience, and impressive undergraduate credentials. But early on, I wasn't doing that well. I wasn't getting callbacks. And that's when the company invites you to visit the company headquarters for a day of a second round of interviews. But I had a classmate who always got a second interview. We called her the callback queen. So I reached out to her. How is it that you always get a second interview? And her response gave me my first real lesson in personal branding. She said, from the time I enter the room and sit down, I take control of the interview. I already know what I'm going to say. I know the most compelling part of my story, and I'm going to make sure they hear it, regardless of the questions they ask. So I took her perspective to heart. I reflected on my past accomplishments and decided my experience as a JCPenney store merchandiser was the most compelling part of my brief history. And I decided no matter what question I was asked, I was going to talk about JCPenney. In one session, the interview asked me to speak about something on my resume, and I said, while that is a good example, I think my experience at JCPenney is a better example, and I'd like to talk about that if I may. And then I just kept going. From that time on, I was always getting a callback interview. So a couple of points from that story. First, be humble enough to ask for help when you need it. Then second, decide what is your best story. Refine it, and then tell it. My first job out of grad school was at Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati. Very tough and competitive environment. Only 3 out of 10 marketing new hires even lasted 5 years. So I'm thinking, how am I going to stand out? Well, again, I learned from others. Everyone was impressed with my analytical skills. But hell, I had always been good at math my entire life. I was on the math team in high school. I taught undergrad stat when I was in grad school. But I never saw it as a basis for a personal brand. But it was. My brand building began with being seen as a problem solver. And that's a nice brand characteristic because business in general and marketing in particular is really about problem solving. Now, you know what you're good at. Take some time, read the room, ask yourself, how many other people are as good at this as I am? You may be on the path to discovering your uniqueness. Additionally, everything about you doesn't necessarily need to be unique for you to have a valuable personal brand. Another component of your brand is your values. No matter your environment, some values are universally appreciated. And here are just a few. Being seen as being responsible, responsive, trustworthy, having high integrity, taking initiative, and then my favorite, just get shit done. When I evaluated performance, this was about the highest level an employee could achieve with me. When I give you an assignment and I know it will get done, that to me is high praise. Okay, second, building your brand. Once you determine what you're good at, it's time to make sure other people recognize it and appreciate it. You've got to find opportunities to make contributions and add value that is seen. Now, you may consider yourself a great team player and don't want to spend time tooting your own horn. But you need to understand, the workplace can be ruthless. There's nothing wrong with ensuring your boss and others know about your contributions. That said, it is even better when others talk about you positively. So it's good to build strong team relationships. And another thing, quality is far more important than quantity. One great memorable moment, a comment in a meeting, a question that gives the team pause, will carry far more long-term impact than a number of smaller contributions. Look for projects or assignments that fit well with your uniqueness and ask for opportunities to be included. A couple things about this. First, you're showing initiative and a desire to make an impact. Leadership loves that. And second, you handpicked an opportunity in which you believe you have a high likelihood for success. The final part of building the brand. Seek and receive confirmation from others that your brand is actually what you think it is or want it to be. You need to develop a few trusted relationships with people who you respect and who will speak to you honestly. All right? So the third step in the personal brand management process is to protect and defend your brand. Just like in consumer products, you must defend your brand positioning or it can be diminished, altered, or worst case, taken away. There are many famous brands that lost their trademark because they didn't defend it and they received the death notice for any brand. You're generic. This list includes aspirin, thermos, escalator, and zipper. Once your brand is established and people know who you are, make sure you don't do or say anything that undermines your effort. You'll know it's happened when you start receiving feedback like, that doesn't sound like you. Also, be conscious of who you spend time with. Your brand can be compromised simply by association. Be careful not to place yourself in an environment or with individuals that may be questionable for whatever reason. The worst part, people aren't likely to tell you if their view of you has changed, so you just need to be aware. Okay, on defending your personal brand, here are a couple examples from my time at Verizon. So as VP of Advertising and Brand Management, I managed the single largest brand advertising budget in the country. Now, there were companies that spent more in total advertising, like General Motors or Procter & Gamble, but those budgets supported multiple brands. My budget was solely for Verizon Wireless. Well, everyone in the music and entertainment industry knew there was a young VP at Verizon with $1 billion budget. I regularly got calls from representatives for athletes, music artists, TV and movie teams for potential deals. You can't be starstruck and be effective in this role. So one day I get a call from my CEO. He wanted to talk to me about a sponsorship opportunity that he had uncovered. He served on a few nonprofit boards, and one of his close board members was a well-known musical artist who was launching a tour. My CEO told him we might be interested in sponsoring it. The artist? Michael Bolton. Now, if you're under the age of 50, you might not know who Michael Bolton is. Well, he was a Grammy Award-winning pop and R&B singer and songwriter whose peak years were the late 1980s into the early 1990s. Well, at that time, my focus was youth marketing. This was the early 2000s. I was trying to develop the wireless market with text messaging, picture messaging, and soon to come mobile music. Michael Bolton did not fit with this. When my CEO says, but Michael says he can deliver the female market of 25 to 40-year-olds. And I said, well, maybe 15 years ago, but not now. But I can read a room, and I could see my CEO really wanted to do this. So I told him, I'll look into it. So then I told my boss, who's the CMO of Verizon Wireless, I was like, look, man, I can't sponsor Michael Bolton. The business world is small, and the marketing community is even smaller. People know what I do for a living. If they see Verizon sponsoring Michael Bolton, they'll know I did it. I have a reputation to consider. This will hurt me professionally, and it won't do anything to help our business. And my boss's response, you got to do it. So what did I do? I spoke with Michael Bolton. And let me first say this. While I never met him in person, we had several phone conversations, and he is a great guy, sweetheart of a guy. But I couldn't put my name on it. So I just wrote him a check to cover the total cost of the sponsorship. And I told him I didn't need to put Verizon's name on it because I wanted it to all be about him. I insisted that Verizon's name or trademark not appear on any of the promotional materials. So he was happy with it. He got the money. My CEO was happy. He was able to sponsor his friend. Oh, by the way, the tour was canceled after less than 2 months. So one of my other responsibilities was to identify and select major motion pictures with sponsorship and co-marketing potential. Movie studios rely heavily on their marketing partners to help them promote films and generate big opening weekends. Each of the major studios has a team solely dedicated to signing up marketing partners. I probably review 10 to 15 movie scripts a year with the goal of selecting 2 to sponsor, one in the first half, one in the second half. One of the movies pitched to me was Catwoman, starring Halle Berry. As usual, I received a copy of the script to read before our meeting. And like book editors, I didn't necessarily read every script from beginning to end, just enough to form an opinion. Well, I only needed to read about 15 minutes of Catwoman to know it wasn't a good match for Verizon. Not just because I didn't think it would be a good movie. Sad as it may be, that's sometimes irrelevant to the potential box office success of a movie. I just didn't see a fit for Verizon. So I only had one question with the studio team when they came to discuss Catwoman. I just asked them, who's going to go see this movie? I got a few answers. The first one was, well, action movie fans will go check it out. I was like, no, they won't. Other than Angelina Jolie, at that time, movies with female leads performed poorly. Action movies with female leads. They're like, well, The action movie target are males 14 to 30. And they'll just, Halle Berry is so hot. I'm like, okay, let me state this for the record. Halle Berry is smoking hot. But we're also the same age. And so for many teenage boys, she was their mother's age. That didn't have appeal. And then their last one was, well, we'll have a big woman audience, a big female audience, because it portrays a strong female presence. I'm like, yeah, right. That's just what every woman needs to feel good about herself. 90 minutes of watching a scantily clad, physically flawless woman on the big screen. So since I didn't receive what I considered a viable answer, I respectfully declined to sign on as a partner. But these studio marketing teams are persistent and persuasive. They don't take no for an answer. After we initially declined, they offered to bring Miss Berry to our offices to discuss how this could be a really good fit for Verizon Wireless. And then, Mar, we discussed this with Halle, and she believes this could really work well. And she'd like to sit down and further discuss it with you. Well, how do you say no to that? I got to tell you, there were a few seconds of silence while I visualized the potential face-to-face encounter. But then I returned from my out-of-body experience and asked myself again, who's going to go see this movie? I realized that Halle Berry herself would not be able to provide an acceptable answer. So again, I told them, thanks, but no thanks. And I immediately called my wife to tell her I passed on a meeting with Halle Berry. I told her, I already got a Halle Berry at home. Again, I had established a very solid image as a strong marketer with a good eye for quality content. Every movie I sponsored was a box office hit. Putting my name on Catwoman would have undermined that reputation. I had to protect my brand. Alas, my boss, on the other hand, had an entirely different reaction. And he says, let me get this straight. Halle Berry was willing to come to our office and you said no? Look, I know you were right not to do the deal, and I'm not going to question your manhood, but here's some friendly advice. Don't ever tell this story to anyone else. Oh, and for the record, Catwoman was a colossal flop. It earned $40 million at the U.S. box office off of a production budget of over $100 million. It carries an 8% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and Halle Berry won the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actor of 2004. So to summarize, personal brand management. Develop and know your brand. Second, build your brand. And third, make sure you protect and defend your brand. Okay, let's get to today's American History Fun Fact. Today's American History Fun Fact. Today, I want to tell the story of a living legend, Lonnie Johnson. He is an engineer, entrepreneur, and inventor of one of the most popular toys ever. So Lonnie Johnson was born on October 6, 1949 in Mobile, Alabama. His father was a World War II veteran who worked as a civilian truck driver for the U.S. Air Force, and his mother worked in a laundry and as a nurse's aide. From an early age, Lonnie liked tinkering and repairing things around the house. He once tore up his sister's baby doll to see what made her eyes close. He also tried to cook up rocket fuel in a saucepan, and in doing so almost burned down the house. Going to school during segregation, Lonnie attended the all-black Williamson High School in Mobile, where he was nicknamed the Professor by his friends. In 1968, while still in high school, he was the only black student competing in a science fair sponsored by the University of Alabama, where he won first prize. In 1969, shortly after graduating from high school, Johnson attended Tuskegee University, obtaining a BS in mechanical engineering in 1973 and a master's degree in nuclear engineering in 1975. After completing his master's degree, he worked for the U.S. Air Force, where he worked on the stealth bomber program before eventually joining NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in 1979. In 1982, he was working at home on an environmentally friendly heat pump that used water instead of Freon, and he attached a high-pressure nozzle to the bathroom sink. Well, the resulting powerful stream of water that blasted out when he pulled the novel's lever inspired him to tinker with it as a potential toy. He gave a prototype to his daughter, which proved to be a great success with her friends. So Johnson spent the next few years shopping his idea around. Finally, he licensed and sold it in 1989 to the Laramie Corporation, and he had called it the Power Drencher. After some improvements in terms of marketing and design, the renamed Super Soaker became a top-selling toy. Laramie Corporation would eventually sell the Super Soaker to Hasbro. The superpowered toy has seen several versions and it is sold under the line to which Johnson has also contributed, which is Nerf. In February 2013, Lonnie Johnson filed a lawsuit against Hasbro after he discovered that he was being underpaid royalties for the Super Soaker and several of the Nerf toys. In November 2013, Johnson was awarded nearly $73 million in royalties from Hasbro Inc. in arbitration. According to Hasbro, the Super Soaker is approaching sales of nearly $1 billion across its lifetime. Now, while Lonnie Johnson is mostly known for his Super Soaker, his accomplishments and legacy extend far beyond the popular toy. Besides toys, Johnson also created items for home use, such as a wet diaper detector and a hairdryer with a curling apparatus. A master of versatility, Lonnie Johnson founded and still heads a technology development company that has spin-off companies. Johnson currently holds over 100 patents, most of which are for his Super Soaker. He received several awards from NASA for his work in spacecraft system design at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. In 2011, Lonnie was inducted into the State of Alabama Engineering Hall of Fame, and in 2022, Johnson was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Lonnie is 75 years old and married to Linda Moore, with whom he had 4 children. The couple currently resides in Atlanta. Okay, that's all I have today for The Ruthless Truth. Thank you again so much for listening. Please be sure to engage on social media. Truth Davis 5 on Instagram, Ruthless Truth on Facebook. Send me your thoughts, comments, and suggestions for topics. And I will talk with you next time. Take care, everybody.